This week on Boring Gear Reviews, we've got the Hook Echo from Dead Air. I'd like to thank Dead Air for sending me the Hook Echo. All right, so what is it? It is a fuzz and delay, but not in the typical sense. It doesn't separate those two effects. Instead, both the delay and the fuzz are combined into one really gnarly and super unique ecosystem. So the delay is based off of the PT2399 delay chip. I love a good analog delay, but there is something about the PT2399, even though it's digital, it feels very kind of warm and chewy and analog-like. Plus, it is one of those chips where as you push the delay times longer, you do get all these really interesting lo-fi artifacts, and you can create really amazing textures with it. For this demo, I'm going to be using my 1980 Tokai Reborn Old LS80. And this has Sunbear 62 patent pickups. And as always, I will be going into my UAD Apollo X6 and using the Softube JMP 2203 amp plugin. So as for controls, there are a lot of controls, and they're all really interactive. That was the first thing that kind of struck me about this pedal, besides how cool it looks, is that every control affects the other. So your possibilities are really vast. You can come up with a lot of different tones and textures by tweaking one thing while everything is the same, and then, adding in little touches here and there with further tweaks. It's really impressive, and it's a fun pedal to really dive into and experiment with. So we have volume. Volume sets the overall output of the pedal while it's on, and there is a ton of volume here, so you can drive your amp insanely hard. Obviously be careful, there's a lot of volume. Next we have time. Time obviously sets the length of time for the delay. Further up you go, the more kind of lo-fi artifacts are introduced. And there's also kind of married to the starve knob. You can increase the delay times by turning up the starve knob as well. Then we have input gain. Input gain is the first gain stage, so you can kind of think of this as a fuzz knob. There's always some gain going on in here, but you can kind of look at this as your fuzz knob. Next is your diffuse knob, and this will kind of balance between the fuzz and the delay. So fully counterclockwise, you're going to get more of an emphasis on the fuzz and less on the delay, but it's not like the delays are going to go away. And then the more clockwise you turn it, you're going to hear the repeats of the delay more. But again, you're not choosing one over the other. The fuzz and delay are one thing in this pedal. And this interacts a lot with both the input gain and the delay gain, which we'll get to. Next we have tone, and like most tone knobs, the further clockwise you turn it, the brighter it gets. This will also interact with the contour knob. So you can change the settings of the contour, and then the sweep of the tone will change as well. Next we have feedback, and this is obviously like the feedback of the repeats of the delay. This is also interactive with the delay gain as well. So the delay gain will set the distortion of the repeats of the delay. It's super interactive with diffuse. So it'll get out of hand really quickly. When I say out of hand, I mean it'll just get into self-oscillation quickly. Like I said, just a ton of cool experimentation, but that will set the distortion of your delay repeats. So starve is going to be kind of like a voltage control. So all the way counterclockwise, all the way down, you're going to have full power of the PT2399. As you turn it up, the sweep in here is really, really cool. You get a ton of variation in tone. So as you turn it up, you're going to reduce the power, and you're going to start getting things kind of like squishier and glitchier. And then the further up you go, it just kind of gets more squashed and compressed. And when you're all the way up, it's like really kind of barely squeezing out. So you get really amazing, completely new and different characteristics with every kind of, I don't know, quarter or eighth turn of the starve knob. And then we have contour. As I said, this is interactive with the tone. So basically it kind of controls the frequency sweep of the mid and even a little bit of the highs as well. One thing you can do is if you turn the contour all the way up, it'll kind of act as like a high cut. So if you're finding there's a lot of fizziness and lo-fi artifacting, you can turn up the contour and that'll tamper that quite a bit. And then we have distress. Distress is kind of the wild card. It interacts with basically everything. And if you turn it all the way off counterclockwise, you get a more traditional fuzz and delay. And then the more you turn it up, the more kind of warbly and broken things get. So you get a lot of options here too. I know I keep saying that you just get a lot of options and things are very interactive. So it might sound like jargon or gimmicky or whatever, but it's not. This pedal everything is very interactive, and the possibility of tone and different characteristics with every turn of every knob is really high. So when you get this pedal, and I suggest you do, be open to experimenting. This is not a tame pedal. The thing is a monster. It wants loud sounds, it wants aggressive things happening, and it wants a lot of noise. And the way you tame it, I discovered, is with the volume knob of your guitar. And to that point, in the first section of this clip, we're going to be using the neck pickup of my Tokai, and I'm gonna have the volume rolled off. So you'll hear how you can tame kind of a lot of the wildness of the pedal in this setting. And then I'll turn to the bridge pickup and it'll get way bigger, way more aggressive, and super kind of huge sounding. This is the only pedal that's on. It's going into a clean amp, a clean plugin with the Softube JMP 2203. So here we're gonna have the volume around 1, the time at noon, input gain is off, diffuse at noon, tone is off, feedback is at noon, delay gain is off, starve is around 11, contour is maxed, and distress is at 3. All right, in this next clip, we're going to be starting with the Enzo. This will come on in the second section, but when it does, it's gonna be kind of like a plinky plunky arpeggiating thing happening. If you'd like to see my full demo of the Meris Enzo, click the link up here. And that will be going into the hook echo. Here, we're gonna keep the volume around 1 or 2. The time is gonna be at 3, input at 11, diffuse a little bit past 3, tone at noon, feedback at noon, delay gain at noon, starve around 11, contour around 2, and distress around 1. And that will be going into the Chase Bliss Audio and Meris CXM 1978. And here we're going to have it set as like a pretty large hall reverb with a lot of pre-delay. So because we are turning up the delay time and obviously everything else that's going on too, you're gonna hear a ton of artifacting. This is a sound I really, really adore. I'm gonna be using my Tokai in the middle pickup setting with both volumes around 2 or 3 o'clock. So here I can tame a lot of the intensity from the settings of the hook echo with just the volume of the guitar. So I can still get a really pleasing delay tone and everything, even though if I turn the volume up, it would be super, super intense and wild. I can really control it with just the volume of a guitar. All right, so for this last setting, we're gonna keep the volume at between 1 and 2. The time is gonna be off, the input gain just past noon, the diffuse around 11, tone around 2, feedback is off, delay gain is at noon. In the first section, we're gonna have the starve cranked all the way up. So it's gonna be really squashed and compressed, and it'll also allow you to hear the delay repeats more. And then we'll go into the second section. All I'm gonna do is turn the starve completely off, and it'll really open it up. When that happens, it becomes like a more of like a heavy metal distortion tone. But because of the other settings, there's like a very tight, like a doubling effect. It's not super obvious, but it's there enough that it just really made me think of guitars I grew up listening to with, heavier music, thrash and metal and stuff, where they would always kind of double the guitar or have like a large room sound. And that turning the starve knob down with these settings gave me that. Then we're gonna have the contour basically at noon and the distress just past noon as well. So like I said, super big, aggressive, thick fuzz tone. Enjoy. And that'll be it for the dead air hook echo. There are some pedals that really encourage and push you to experiment more than others. This is one of those pedals. It initially does it just by the fact that it doesn't work in the way you think it would work. It's not fuzz and delay. It's not, you don't choose one or the other. Somehow they're one thing, which is really, really cool. The controls are really beautifully thought out and super interesting. And like I said, they all interact and play off of each other. So you have to experiment. You have to be open to trying new things and finding new sounds and really tweaking and seeing what you can do with it. I love this thing. I can't wait to record with it more, like on my own music, and feature it in other demos. I think it's super cool. All of Dead Air's stuff is priced really, really well, like shockingly well. So I suggest you check out their big cartel store and pick up this or anything else. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And if you are already subscribed, I appreciate that. As I've mentioned before, we are less than 200 subscribers away from 1,000. And once we hit 1,000, I do have something cool planned. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that, and we'll get on with the cool stuff. As always, the links to all the gear I'm using will be in the description below. And until next time, peace.